The first time the aliens saw someone eat a Carolina Reaper, they assumed it was an execution ritual. Paxlen Vorez had no idea he was about to become a galactic curiosity when he walked into the Interspecies Cultural Exchange Summit with half a burrito in one hand and a bottle of ghost pepper sauce in the other. His mouth was already tingling from the first few bites, his brow damp, but the endorphin rush was hitting just right, and he wasn't about to let a room full of diplomats stop him from finishing lunch. The summit hall was grand, filled with representatives from over 30 alien species, towering figures with silver carapaces, creatures resembling floating sea anemones, and beings that shimmered like heat haze over asphalt all stood around polished black tables. Conversations in dozens of languages buzzed through the air, translated in real time by discrete ear implants. Paxlen, dressed in a slightly wrinkled dark blue suit and a badge that read Earth Culinary Delegate, was there to explain spice. He wiped his mouth with a napkin and poured more of the sauce onto the remaining half of his burrito. "You should not ingest that," a voice said from behind him. Paxlen turned to see a tall, translucent alien with long, tapering limbs and a softly glowing core. The being's eyes, if they could be called that, were two glimmering ovals that shifted in hue. "Hi," Paxlen said, offering a nod. "You're with the Vorqual delegation, right?" "I am called Yelqt," the alien replied. "You are consuming a substance that registers on our sensor arrays as corrosive." "That tracks," Paxlen said, chewing. "It's ghost pepper sauce. Pretty mild, actually. I've had worse. Your internal membranes must be dissolving. Is your mouth not melting?" Paxlen blinked, coughed once, and reached for his water bottle. "Nope. Just hurts a little. That's the fun of it." Other aliens were gathering now. One of the tall, segmented Arzik leaned in, eyes swiveling toward the half-eaten burrito. A Jalari ambassador floated closer, its tendrils quivering. A small green creature with a rotating upper torso muttered something that translated to, "He's eating weaponized fruit." "I can explain," Paxlen said, swallowing and raising both hands. "This is cultural. Humans enjoy spice, pain even. It's complicated." Yelqt tilted its head. "You derive pleasure from oral agony?" Paxlen hesitated. "It's not agony. It's an experience. Builds character, clears the sinuses, makes you feel alive." A low chime sounded from the central dais, and the summit moderator, a pale, spherical being named Droon, glided forward. "Esteemed delegates, we are now beginning our cultural demonstration phase. Earth representative, you are first." Paxlen turned red. "I thought I was fourth." "You began your demonstration early," Droon said. "Proceed." Paxlen sighed, pulled a small tray from his backpack, and laid out an array of hot peppers. Habaneros, serranos, Thai bird's eye chilies, and one ominous, wrinkled Carolina Reaper nestled in the center like a ruby of doom. "I present," he said, "the Human Spice Challenge." The room was silent. Even the air filters seemed to pause. Paxlen picked up a habanero, bit into it, and winced. "This one's got a kick. Scoville rating about 300,000. "Scoville?" asked Yelqt. "Unit for measuring heat," Paxlen said. "Next up, Serrano." He moved through the peppers, sweating more with each bite, his voice growing hoarser. By the time he reached the Reaper, more than 20 aliens had gathered around. Some were recording. Others were growing visibly agitated. "This one," Paxlen said, holding up the Reaper, "is about 2 million Scoville units." "You will perish," said a glassy-skinned creature from the Shinari cluster. "Probably not," Paxlen said. "Probably." He bit down. The pain was immediate. His ears rang. His vision blurred. A hiccup escaped him, followed by a gurgling cough. A few aliens recoiled. One collapsed. Paxlen dropped to a knee, gripping the edge of the table, eyes wide and leaking tears. "Water is a trap," he gasped. "Milk. Where's the milk?" A small service drone zipped over, spraying a jet of almond milk into a paper cup. Paxlen downed it in one gulp and gasped. "This is madness," said Yelqt. "You are injured." "It's part of the deal," Paxlen wheezed. "It's not about avoiding pain. It's about facing it. Choosing it." A booming voice echoed through the hall. "This is dangerous behavior. Reckless." It came from a hulking ambassador from the Yelqt Combine, a species known more for battle than diplomacy. The being stepped forward, muscles rippling under armor. "You train your young with this?" "Some," Paxlen said, slumping into a chair. "Started with jalapenos at 8. A murmur passed through the crowd. The Yelqt ambassador stepped forward and picked up a pepper. "Do not," Paxlen began. The alien tossed it into its mouth. There was a pause, then a wheezing growl. The Yelqt bolted from the room, smoke trailing from its nostrils. Yelqt looked at Paxlen again. "You willingly inflict internal combustion upon yourselves. For pleasure. Is this common?" "Not everyone likes it," Paxlen said. "But enough of us do to make a whole culture out of it. Hot sauce festivals, pepper eating contests, spicy ramen challenges. We even have social media accounts dedicated to watching people cry while eating this stuff." Yelqt turned to Drun. "I request permission to observe Earth culinary environments directly." Drun hesitated. "Approved under escort." 2 hours later, Paxlen was sitting in the back of an interstellar transport shuttle next to Yelqt and a few others from the Vorkwal and Jalari delegations. The shuttle descended over New Mexico, where the annual Capsaicin Carnival was in full swing. "I should warn you," Paxlen said, "this is not subtle." The shuttle landed near a massive fairground. Booths lined the walkways, each one offering spicier fare than the last. The air was thick with chili smoke. People cheered as contestants attempted the Inferno Challenge, which involved downing a bowl of ghost pepper stew followed by a habanero milkshake. Yelqt drifted behind Paxlen, sensors pulsing. "These humans are laughing while suffering." "That's kind of the point," Paxlen said. "Shared misery builds bonds." A teenager nearby vomited into a trash can and raised both arms in triumph. A crowd cheered. Yelqt turned to a Jalari delegate. "They celebrate digestive trauma. I am not convinced their species is stable," the Jalari answered. At a small booth, Paxlen pointed to a tray of Reaper lollipops. "This is the stuff. Most concentrated capsaicin you'll find in candy." Yelqt hovered closer. "You would permit me to analyze one?" "Sure," Paxlen said. "Just don't eat it." Yelqt lifted a lollipop with delicate appendages and scanned it. The readout caused several of the alien's limbs to twitch. "This is chemically similar to some of our industrial solvents." "Yeah," Paxlen said. "That tracks." Later that day, Paxlen joined a panel on culinary pain and cultural identity. He stood beside chefs, scientists, and one man who legally changed his name to Pepper Dave. Yelqt sat in the front row taking notes. Spice, Paxlen told the crowd, isn't just about flavor. It's about pushing limits. It's about endurance. We know it hurts. That's why we do it. It's not the opposite of pleasure, it's part of it. Yelqt raised a limb. And what are the long-term effects? Damage to tissues? Systemic stress. "We're not saying it's good for you," Paxlen admitted. "We're saying it's worth it." After the panel, Yelqt approached him again. "I do not comprehend." "You don't have to," Paxlen said. "You just have to understand that we're wired differently. For us, overcoming pain is a source of pride." Yelqt was quiet for a moment. "You have redefined suffering. That is unique." The next day, a medical emergency broke out at the carnival. A man tried to inhale powdered ghost pepper for a viral video and collapsed. Paxlen rushed to help, guiding paramedics through the crowd. The man was stabilized, but it took hours. Yelqt stood beside the stretcher. "He nearly died." "He was stupid," Paxlen said. "There's a difference between challenge and recklessness." Yelqt looked at Paxlen for a long time. "Your species dances on the edge of agony. Not because it is safe, because it is meaningful." Paxlen didn't respond. He just reached into his bag, pulled out a bottle of hot sauce, and handed it to the alien. "Take it back with you," he said. Maybe someday you'll understand. Yelqt held the bottle like a sacred artifact. Later, as the shuttle lifted off, Paxlen watched the carnival shrink below. He wasn't sure what mess he'd just started, but he knew one thing: the question wasn't whether his mouth was melting. The real question was why humans had decided that was a good idea in the first place. 3 days after the Capsaicin Carnival, Yelqt returned to the Vorkwal research vessel orbiting Earth's southern hemisphere. The ship, a spiral lattice of translucent plates and soft pulsating nodes, was designed for passive observation. Until now, the species had never felt compelled to intervene. But Yelqt had filed an unprecedented request. A formal proposal to study human nociceptive tolerance, specifically how Earth species interacted willingly with substances that triggered their pain sensors. The Council of Internal Stability had been skeptical. "You're requesting vivisectional authority?" asked Lurith, a senior xenopsychologist, her form rippling with indigo concern. "No," Yelqt replied. "I am requesting field immersion. I will cohabitate with a human subject. Monitor biological responses. Attempt ingestion under remote safety parameters. You intend to eat with them. I intend to understand why they eat what shouldn't be eaten." Lurith recoiled slightly. "And you believe this will yield usable data?" "I believe it is already yielding something, just not what we expected." The Council granted temporary clearance with a strict prohibition against full ingestion of any Earth-based capsaicin analogs. Yelqt's physiology, while adaptable, lacked the regenerative mucosal linings that allowed humans to survive their own culinary transgressions. Still, the alien was allowed to return to Earth under controlled conditions, equipped with a biosuit capable of mimicking human temperature and moisture levels and embedded with emergency neutralizers. Yelqt rendezvoused with Paxlen in Albuquerque, where the latter was house-sitting for a friend who, incidentally, ran a hot sauce distribution warehouse. The arrangement was too convenient to ignore. "You're sure you want to stay here?" Paxlen asked, unlocking the front gate. "I require proximity to active spice environments." "You'll get that. And probably a sinus infection." They stepped inside. The air hit like a slap from a dragon. It wasn't just spicy, it was saturated. The walls reeked of vinegar and chili extract. A floor fan pushed the aroma around like a weaponized fog. Paxlen tossed his keys onto the counter and gestured to the couch. "That folds out. Sheets are in the closet. Bathrooms down the hall, but fair warning, the water heater is temperamental." Yelqt examined the room. "Your dwelling contains no hazard warning, yet the ambient vapor exceeds tolerable limits for 3 known species. I'll crack a window." Over the next week, they established a routine. Mornings began with Paxlen making coffee so strong it triggered Yelqt's airborne chemical sensors at a distance of 5 meters. He'd then test hot sauces on crackers, rating them on a scale that seemed to have no scientific basis. Yelqt recorded everything: eye dilation, sweat rate, changes in vocal pitch. By the 5th day, the alien had started mimicking expressions, though always a beat too late and slightly off. "You tried to smile again," Paxlen said, watching the alien's facial membrane stretch upward in a disturbing crescent. "Was I not successful? You looked like a haunted kite." "Noted." That afternoon, Paxlen prepared what he called the test gauntlet. A lineup of spicy condiments from around the world: Sichuan oil, Trinidad scorpion puree, something unlabeled with a warning sticker that read simply, "Don't." "I will observe ingestion protocol," Yelqt said, settling into a chair. "What is the sequence?" "No sequence. It's all improv. The only rule is you stop when your body tells you to. And if it does not, you'll know." Paxlen dipped a spoon into the Sichuan oil and took a bite. He didn't flinch, but his left eye twitched. "I detect neurogenic inflammation in your nasal passages. Means it's working." Next, he tried the scorpion puree. His breathing changed slightly. Yelqt's sensors registered a mild rise in core temperature, a constriction in the upper bronchi, and a spike in cortisol. The human was in discomfort but still functioning. Then he reached for the unlabeled jar. "I advise against this," Yelqt said. "Your earlier ingestion caused minor gastric hemorrhaging." "That was a different sauce." Paxlen opened the jar. "This one's more existential." He took a spoonful. For seconds passed. Then he stood up, walked outside, and lay down on the lawn without a word. Yelqt followed, unsure if this was a medical event or a cultural ritual. Paxlen groaned. Feels like my soul is on fire. I can summon emergency services. No. This is fine. I just need to lie here until the universe realigns. Yelqt knelt beside him. You knew this would occur. Yeah. And you proceeded. Also yeah. Yelqt paused. Have you ever considered that your species evolved not for survival, but for defiance? Paxlen coughed. We get bored easy. That night, Yelqt filed an encrypted report back to the Vorkwal vessel. It read, in part, they do not pursue pain for dominance, nor for enlightenment. They pursue it because they believe any sensation, no matter how extreme, is better than emptiness. The next day, Paxlen woke with abdominal cramps and a nosebleed. Yelqt insisted on transporting him to the nearest clinic. The nurse at the urgent care center was used to hot sauce tourists. She didn't blink when she saw Paxlen's chart. Capsaicin exposure again? She asked, snapping on gloves. New blend. Possibly fermented. She examined his throat with a penlight. You've blistered your soft palate. That's new. Cool. It's not. Yelqt stood nearby, observing. Your species seeks medical attention after self-inflicted damage and expresses satisfaction. The nurse looked over. He say something weird again? He's learning. She handed Paxlen a cup of viscous pink liquid. Coat your throat. No talking for a few hours. And stop eating things that make your organs revolt. Paxlen nodded. Outside, as they walked to the parking lot, Yelqt said, Do you intend to repeat this behavior? Not today. Tomorrow, then? Maybe. They drove in silence until they passed a billboard advertising the New Mexico Chili Institute. Paxlen pointed at it. Field trip? Yelqt's ocular nodes brightened. Affirmative. 2 days later, they arrived at the institute, a low, unassuming complex surrounded by rows of green and red crops, their scent drifting lazily across the fields. Inside, researchers cataloged hybrids, testing for heat levels, disease resistance, and flavor profiles. A botanist named Dr. Amita Shah greeted them. I've read your observational logs, she said to Yelqt. You've got more data points on trigeminal response than any of our interns. I seek to understand the appeal of voluntary nociception. She raised an eyebrow. You could have just said spice pain. I could have, Yelqt agreed. She led them to a greenhouse where genetically modified peppers hung like ornaments from thick-stemmed plants. These aren't ready for public release. Some of them haven't even been named yet. Want to see the big one? Paxlen's eyes lit up. Always. They entered a sealed chamber. Inside sat a single pepper, black with streaks of crimson, emitting a faint shimmer of heat. It looked less like food and more like a fossilized flame. We call it Project 27X, Dr. Shah said. It's got novel capsaicinoids. We think it bypasses traditional pain receptors and goes straight to the brain's alarm center. Paxlen leaned closer. It's beautiful. Yelqt examined it with a handheld scanner. This fruit would incapacitate most known vertebrates. And yet, Paxlen said, someone's gonna eat it on a dare. Or for a live stream, Dr. Shah added. Paxlen turned to Yelqt. You still think we're just irrational? I think you consider risk a form of artistry. They left the institute with a small sample non-lethal, certified for research only. Paxlen promised not to taste it without supervision. That night, as they sat on the porch sipping milk and watching the stars, Yelqt asked, if your body resists, and your brain protests, why do you persist? Paxlen thought for a while. Because when it's over, I feel like I accomplished something. Like I proved I could handle it. To whom? He shrugged. Sometimes just to myself. Yelqt looked up at the constellations, some familiar, some alien. Your defiance is not a flaw, the alien said finally. It is your thesis statement. Paxlen chuckled. That's the nicest thing anyone said to me after I burned my esophagus. It was 4 days after the Chili Institute visit, and the sun was already high when Yelqt hovered into the open garage where Paxlen was hunched over a folding table, assembling something that looked like a medieval torture device built by an enthusiastic intern with an Amazon gift card. Explain this, Yelqt said, slowing as it processed the object's form. A metal stand with a rotating wheel, small clamps positioned like thumbscrews, and a rack of narrow glass tubes filled with increasingly ominous red liquids. Capsaicin roulette, Paxlen said, not looking up. 6 sauces. One's just ketchup. One's a Carolina Reaper extract. The rest are somewhere in between. Spin, clamp, squirt, guess, survive. This is for entertainment, Yelqt said, scanning the tubes. The third from the left is emitting volatile vapors. The 6th is corrosive to synthetic polymers. That one's the wild card. There are no safety parameters. There's a hose. Yelqt paused. This is not a sufficient mitigation strategy. It's how we learn, Paxlen said, tightening a bolt. You ready? I will observe. You always say that and then you end up in the splash zone. Paxlen spun the wheel. It clicked around, slowing until it pointed at the darkest, most opaque bottle. He raised a brow. Of course, he said, selecting a glass pipette. Let's dance. He squeezed a drop onto a tortilla chip and popped it into his mouth. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then his face flushed and his jaw locked. I believe your pupils have constricted, Yelqt said. Paxlen held up one finger, staggered back 2 steps, and made a sound between a gargle and a yelp. There is fluid emerging from multiple cranial orifices, Yelqt noted, folding its upper limbs. Paxlen slumped against the wall. My teeth are vibrating. That is not a known biological response. It is now. He stayed slumped for a while, breathing through his nose like a yoga instructor on a dare. Finally, he pushed himself upright and wiped his face with a rag that probably wasn't clean enough for the job. Your turn, he said. I do not possess the appropriate epithelial linings. No ingestion. Observation only. Pick one. Spin the wheel. Yelqt complied. The device landed on a pale yellow sauce, innocuous looking. Paxlen dipped a fresh pipette and waved it under a thermal sensor. Low heat. Probably habanero base. He retrieved a cotton swab, dabbed a drop, and touched it to the inside of his forearm. Contact test? Yelqt asked. More like a patch preview. Within moments, a red welt appeared. Paxlen nodded. Acceptable. Yelqt scanned the reaction. Localized histamine response. No systemic threat. Yet, Paxlen wiped off the sauce and made a note on a greasy notepad. We're mapping these for a tasting event next week. You intend to subject others to this. Volunteers only. There's a waiver. Later that evening, Paxlen stood in front of the bathroom mirror, shirt off, examining the patch test site. The skin was inflamed but not broken. He dabbed on some aloe and winced. Yelqt hovered by the door. You are exhibiting signs of capsaicin sensitization. Repeated exposure may reduce tolerance thresholds. You saying I'm burning out? I am suggesting your current trajectory will result in gastrointestinal compromise. Paxlen sighed. Already there. Yelqt entered the room. Then why persist? Because I said I would. To whom? Myself. Yelqt tilted its head. You are aware that a circular logic. I'm aware I'm stubborn. The next morning, Paxlen didn't eat breakfast. He sat on the couch, staring at the ceiling fan as it clicked in irregular rhythm. His stomach churned and his throat felt like he'd swallowed gravel. Yelqt hovered nearby, silently monitoring his vitals. By early afternoon, he was pale. Hospital, Yelqt said. I'll drink water. You will not. They arrived at a local emergency clinic with no signage and a receptionist who barely looked up. Capsaicin overdose? She asked. Yeah, Paxlen said, hunched over, with a side of regret. An intern wheeled him into an exam room. The physician, a lanky woman with a half-finished coffee, entered moments later. She glanced at the chart, then at Yelqt. You brought your own alien. He's my research partner. I'm not judging. Just curious why your esophagus is inflamed like a balloon animal. Roulette went badly. She examined him, palpated his abdomen, and listened to his chest. You've got esophageal microtears and probable gastritis. How long have you been doing these tests? Since the summit. She shook her head. You're not gonna die. but you'll wish you had. Fair. No solids for 48 hours. No peppers for a week. And absolutely no extracts. That sounds like a challenge. It's not. It's a warning. She handed him a prescription and left without further comment. Yelqt followed Paxlen out of the building, watching as he leaned against the car, eyes closed. You must cease, Yelqt said. There is no data left worth extracting. There's one thing. What? Finding the line. Seeing where it breaks. It has broken, Yelqt said. You are bleeding internally. I've been worse. Yelqt paused. You are attempting to prove something that no longer requires proof. Paxlen opened his eyes. I know. They drove home in silence. Paxlen went inside and fell asleep on the couch, curled like a punctuation mark. Yelqt spent the evening reviewing their data logs, deleting redundant segments, and flagging observations that indicated pathology rather than adaptation. By dawn, Paxlen was awake and sipping tea. He stared out the window as the first rays hit the garage roof. I'm done, he said. Yelqt turned. You are? Yeah. I think I proved my point. To whom? Not to me. There was a pause. Yelqt moved closer. Then to whom? Paxlen smiled. Tired. To you. Yelqt's ocular nodes flickered. You believe I required convincing. I believe you needed to see how far we'll go. And what we'll do when we're done. Yelqt considered this. You have demonstrated both extremes. Paxlen nodded. You've cataloged the madness. Now catalog the recovery. Yelqt closed its scanning array. Already begun. They spent the next 3 days dismantling the roulette setup, labeling the bottles, and boxing the sauces for disposal. Yelqt arranged for a containment courier to collect the more aggressive samples. On the 4th day, they visited a local diner. Paxlen ordered plain scrambled eggs and toast. Yelqt observed with interest. No condiments? It asked. Not this time. No capsaicin? Not even black pepper. Yelqt leaned back. You are capable of restraint. Only after the damage is done. They ate in silence. Outside, a dust storm brewed on the horizon. Lightning flickered in the clouds. Miles away, Paxlen set down his fork. You still think we're unstable? Yelqt answered without hesitation. Yes, but you are predictably unstable. That's the nicest thing you've said to me. It is also the most accurate. On the 7th day, Yelqt transmitted its final report to the Vorkwal vessel. It concluded, humans do not seek pain. They seek the limits of their own will, and pain is merely the tool most readily available. Their capacity for suffering is matched only by their reflex to recover and reframe. They are not reckless. They are rehearsing. The Vorkwal Council acknowledged the report. No further observation requests were filed. That evening, Paxlen stood at the edge of his driveway watching the sky change. Yelqt hovered beside him. Leaving tomorrow? Paxlen asked. Yes. Gonna miss the roulette? Yelqt emitted a low harmonic pulse. I do not require fire to remember warmth. They stood there until the first raindrops fell.